Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Chicago, Grand Rapids, Duluth, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, and Jacksonville, Florida. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. So Seymour Hersh, his latest article, says that Biden had a major medical event that was covered up as COVID. Remember, they said, oh, Joe Biden's got COVID. And that if he resisted stepping down, they were going to invoke the 25th Amendment. So you're trying to tell me that certain dealings with President Joe Biden are not on the up and up? I won't stand for that, which is why I'm sitting down. So there's Joe Biden. What is that face? What is the kind of looks like he's
bowel movement?
And that's what I was thinking. Looks like he's trying to make sure he doesn't soil his pants. Trying to make sure that a fart doesn't turn into a shit. Is that what he's doing? He looks like a dash hound, right? Is that indicating things are not going the way his handlers told him they would? That's what that looks like. Anyway, so leaving Las Vegas, this is it. Inside the last tortured days of the Biden campaign. This is Seymour Hersh, July 27th. He says, it's not surprising that the long overdue unraveling of President Joe Biden's re-election campaign happened when it became impossible to keep his increasing impairment covered up. It was, by the way, they weren't keeping it covered up. We saw it in 2019. We've seen it. Everybody's seen it. They weren't covering it up. They were lying to people, and then certain people decided to believe that lie. It became impossible to get. It was the big time money backers of the Democratic Party who called off the game of see no evil, hear no evil after Biden's shocking performance in his June debate with Donald Trump. Shocking? Shocking would be if Biden didn't sound like the last ice cube in his skull had just melted. That would be shocking. Shocking would have been if he came out and spoke fluently and coherently. That would have been shocking. They balked at continuing to give millions of dollars to the party now that there was evidence that the president is not always there. You'd think it would be a vigilant press corps. This is Seymour Hersh. You'd think it would be a vigilant press corps led by the New York Times and the Washington Post who first broached the issue of Biden's impairment. But those papers missed the story. No, I would not think that. You would think, no, I would not. Nobody thinks that. That's funny that he would write that. Seymour Hersh has been on the show. He's probably, him and Julian Assange, the greatest investigative reporters of our time. Glenn Greenwald also up there. Want to make sure I get that shout out. You'd think it would be the press. No, we would not think that. Just to let you know, we would not think that. Okay. The first significant report came in early June from the Wall Street Journal, whose consistently brilliant news section, considered suspect by the Times and Post and many readers because of the paper's conservative editorial page and the fact that it is part of Rupert Murdoch's News Corps, broke the story on the front page under the headline, Biden's closed doors. Behind closed doors, Biden shows signs of slipping. I tweeted that out. I said, you should see what he's doing in front of the closed doors. Behind closed doors, he shows signs. Behind the closed doors. That's how much they've lowered their standards over at the Wall Street Journal. They're only starting to notice signs now? Are you kidding? Okay. Anyway, the White House press office quickly responded that both of those quoted in the story were Republicans who are supporters of Trump. The strategy somehow worked. Fear of Trump took priority over doing the right thing. Somehow it worked. Well, yeah, because Biden did such a great job handling COVID. The strategy. Oh, my God. Who in Washington didn't know that Biden was failing? We all did, up to a point. I had learned months earlier from a federal official that those in the front rows of university events where Biden was speaking were warned not to move if the president tripped while walking to the podium. Can I just... I just can't get over it. The strategy somehow worked. The strategy, by somehow, does I mean obviously, since every blue anon MAGA, that's blue MAGA people, they've been lobotomized by corporate horseshit for at least a decade. So that's how it somehow worked. Because people still believe what they see on TV and read in the New York Times. Okay. Who in Washington didn't? So they were told not to get up if President Biden at universities where he'd be speaking or at, graduation ceremonies. They were told. That's amazing. That's amazing. Secret Service agents were on hand to pick him up immediately. There would be no front page photos of a college valedictorian helping the president climb to his feet. The American public could see Biden's slow decline. Okay. Okay. Wow, this is... The Journal reported that nearly 3/4 of those polled thought Biden was too old to seek another term. Cabinet meetings in the past few years largely disappeared or turned into rote sessions, as recorded by the C-SPAN, which faithfully televises all White House events. Biden would join the seated cabinet heads and read from a prepared text, with each page covered with a plastic sheet. Instead of asking, is Biden too old? Is he too... Why don't we... They just never asked the right questions. The questions they should have asked was, is it us or does Joe Biden's stutters seem to be way worse? Would you ever dream of letting your kid on a school bus that Joe Biden was driving? That's a question they should have asked. Would you be relieved to know that that Biden thinks his nuclear football is actually just one of those toys where you pull the string and the cow says moo? What brand of car battery do you think is being used to animate Joe Biden's corpse puppet? Those would be the questions that they should have asked, not is he too old? Hey, would you say Biden's brain is more of a liquid or a gas at this point? Those would be the questions they should ask. After the debate, there was mounting pressure on Biden to drop out. The White House and the president himself denied that he was suffering from anything more than a bad day or a cold or a jet lag. There were newspaper stories about Hunter Biden, the president's convicted son, keeping by his side and warning all White House staffers that anyone who even hinted at the truth would be fired. Really? That message quickly was leaked to the press. Soon, the White House press corps suddenly discovered that they were being misled by the president's press secretary. No kidding. There were lots of tortured questions and broken hearts, but the message was the same. The president is in good health and is going to run for re-election this fall and carry on serving for 4 more years after he defeats Trump. Boy, when you put it like that, I guess it is pretty funny. He's going to defeat Trump. Okay. On Monday, July 15th, Biden took off on Air Force One on a campaign trip to Nevada, a toss-up state that Biden won in 2020 by a little more than 30,000 votes. On Tuesday, he gave the keynote address to 5,000 members of the NAACP at its annual convention. And did you see video from that? He couldn't even read his own speech. It was a disaster. In the middle of sentences, he would just go, anyway. He's reading. He's reading. Okay. The next day, the president, apparently stricken while campaigning with a yet-to-be-revealed illness, broke from his schedule and made a police escort race to Air Force One after initially telling police they were heading to the nearest emergency room. So something happened to him. That's what Alex Jones actually reported.
Well, that's because what happens in Vegas, Jimmy, stays
in
in
Vegas. A series of blog posts, local police reports, internet messages, and report in the Daily Mail disclosed further details on Biden's trip to Las Vegas and his abrupt return home to Delaware. I'm pretty sure he was having bone surgery to make himself 8 inches taller than he previously was. You see how much taller Joe Biden's gotten? He's now taller than Benjamin Netanyahu. I went over these reports this week with a senior official in Washington who helped me fashion an account of a White House in complete disarray, culminating in the president's withdrawal from the race. It's a story not unlike 7 Days in May, the Cold War thriller in which a colonel played by Kirk Douglas foils a coup staged by a general played by Burt Lancaster. None of what you read below comes from an official account by the White House. None of what you read below comes from an official account by the White House. Okay? By the way, over a century ago, Smedley Butler realized he was actually just a highly decorated corporate mercenary who was actually tasked with defending international money interests rather than defending America. And the reason we don't see the new Smedley Butler today is because the money's too good. Okay. So at this point, according to Emily Gooden, a Daily Mail reporter who was in the traveling press pool. So they have a press pool that travels with the president, right? And they get on the plane. The president was deathly pale, and Air Force One flew at maximum speed to Delaware, where the president has a weekend retreat at Rehoboth Beach. The press pool was told that Biden had COVID. Nothing more was said on Air Force One. Well, how pale was he? He was so pale, people suddenly remembered how he wrote the crime bill that locked up 3/4 of the majority of black and brown people. That's how pale he was. Okay. After Biden's return to Delaware, the White House told the public that Biden had contracted COVID infection and would be in isolation. He was said to have upper respiratory symptoms, a runny nose, a cough, and that he was fatigued. Okay. That was the last straw for a core group of congressional leaders, government officials, and some senior Biden funders who are withholding huge amounts of committed contributions. There was pressure on donors to come across on their pending commitments, the official told me. It was understood that Biden had a physical problem in Las Vegas, and the family was saying no to continued pressure from donors and senior Democrats in Congress to withdraw from the presidential campaign. Initially, the president could not be reached. The president what? Initially, the president could not be reached. And they said that while they were standing right in front of him. By Saturday, July 20th, former President Barack Obama was deeply involved, and there was talk that he would place a call to Biden. It was not clear whether Biden had been examined or just what happened to him in Las Vegas. The big three, the official said, referring to former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, continued to be directly involved. On Sunday morning, the official told me, with the approval of Pelosi and Schumer, Obama called Joe Biden after breakfast and said, "Here's the deal. We have Kamala's approval to invoke the 25th Amendment." Oh, it's that kind of loyalty that gets you ahead in Washington. Am I right?
Huh.
Oh. So they're saying, well, we think we have the approval from Kamala. We told her to giggle like an idiot once, just once for yes and twice for no. So the 25th Amendment provides that when the president is determined by the vice president and others to be unfit to carry out the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall assume those duties. A key factor in this decision to force Biden out of office by invoking the 25th Amendment was a series of increasingly negative polls on the president's standing against Trump that had been commissioned by funders. That's what it was. That's what did this. That's what this is. The official who has decades of experience in fundraising told me that Obama emerged as the strong man throughout the negotiations. He had an agenda, and he wanted to seek it through to the end, and he wanted to have control over who would be elected. That means he's talking about Obama, right? Wow. So this is the kind of stuff that crack White House press corps missed. This is the kind of stuff that they missed, and so nobody knew Joe Biden was in mental decline. He doesn't know where to go, doesn't know what to do. There he goes. Whoops. Oh, look, they're all pointing. Oh, here he comes. Remember this? Forgets to take his foot out of the pedal. And falls straight over. At least he didn't break his hip. That's positive.
Republic of Brazil, accompanied by the Director General of the International Labor Organization.
And to say to President Biden, can you hear me, President Biden? This is a historical moment for Brazil.
Look at this.
And for the U.S. President Biden, can you hear me? You can? Yes, good.
Oh, and my God.
Oh.
This is going to be tough. He's going to try and put this coat on. I see this. Okay, but he's a real.
What their cost? 2, 10, 12, 15. Whoop, stepping on a. There's a. It's black. Anyway.
And here he is now he's gonna crap his pants right there. Okay.
Distinguished guests, please welcome the Honorable Lloyd J. Austin.
And then she says, please don't do that here. Oh, remember this? He doesn't know where to go.
Mr. President, thank you.
Look at, he's the president. He has no idea what.
At the end of such
like
a momentous event, the word thank you seems kind of inadequate. But for all the millions whose lives will be saved, for the community.
Food and shelter by someone they may have never met before.
Oh, they're just going to go to sleep, right?
We are a community that relies on family, on ohana, whether by blood or by friendship. But like many others, my son's home burned down.
Oh, this is him in Maui. Oh, jeez.
What do you do next? 4 more years. Pause.
4 more years.
Oh, God.
4 more years.
So he read.
I've been a senator since I was 29 years old. Never left government. The fall, he had tied that fall. He decided to Look, I shouldn't get into this probably. Never forget, America is the strongest when we lead not only by our example of our power, but by the power of our example. You can clap for that. As President Lincoln said, we'll never forget lying around. And him lying around, actually. They're trying to erase black history. We're going to write black history because it's American history. On Memorial Day, I proudly stood with a black man. Just checking this afternoon. Good afternoon. Will not bring Israel and will not bring down, will only bog down Israel and Gaza.
Yes, sir.
Is Steny here? Where's Steny Hoyer? Steny Hoyer.
I hear him in the back. He's drinking. He's over by the beer.
Well, Steny Hoyer lives on the western shore of Delaware in Maryland. The thing about, let me put it this way. I remember when I was vice president and things weren't going too well.
Okay. Wow. That's fantastic. That's okay. All right. So that's the story. They were going to force him out. Joe Biden got forced out. And it was because the donor class didn't want to give the money anymore because his polling was bad. Not because he's demented. That's why. So democracy's on the ballot. You don't live in a democracy. If you think you live in a democracy, you're a chump. Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Chicago, Grand Rapids, Duluth, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, and Jacksonville, Florida. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.